What's up, guys? Travis here again with Badass Dad Stories. I didn't realize anyone would even be seeing these, much less comment or hit me up and start reminding me of other times and experiences, funny things that have happened we've shared. As you guys saw in a previous video, mentioned one of my buddies, Richard, which brought about Badass Friend Stories, one highlighting him in particular. And so again, you guys are asking, so I'm gonna tell you more. So this is a badass wife story. She's a badass in her own respects, but not that she cares to be. You know, she's really more of a just a good person, you know, good person story. There's not many of those around, and she's about as genuine and pure of a Christian girl, from a nice upbringing, loyal, and just straight up 100% joy for life and true to herself and her family kind of gal. And she is turned into a hell of a woman. Got a badass wife story here for you. So as you can see, I've got my sunglasses handy. Really hard to tell this story without crying. So try to keep it together so I can get through this and tell you guys, because it's that good. But it's kind of long. I'm going to try to just keep the important parts in it, but let's get going. This is it. So her and I met when we were, you know, just in college, you know, 19, 20, somewhere around in there, that we actually started dating and getting serious. And we both came from good families. You know, it isn't like she was some rich, spoiled little chick, and it isn't like I was some redneck, hardworking heathen. That part is true, but in regards to our families and our background, you know, it wasn't inevitable that we would find each other, but again, not just one of the most unlikely pairings in the world. What set me apart from other guys were two things: my sense of adventure and spontaneity, and two, my not giving up, just my unrelenting motivation and drive to be able to talk to this girl and get to know her. So we, as you start dating and you're young, and of course you're usually the guy ends up being the dumb one in the relationship, and when they, you know, you get nervous about, okay, is this something that is going to last forever, or do I need to get, you know, one last wild throwdown out of my system and go run off and get wild and crazy with my buddies? This is that time of life and the type of girl that when you do that, she's not going to be there at the end of it. You have to, at one point in your life, you have to make that decision, and it's a final decision. You have went out and partied for your, well, as far as sowing your wild oats, you have done that for your last time. But with that being said, I thought, well, I could have the best of both worlds. You know, if I show this girl my true self and sense of adventure, and can get her to join me for the rest of my life with these type of things and activities I'm into, then we'll be a perfect match. And that's exactly what happened. I was still spending my summers in Colorado, and she had never stayed the night with a guy, much less, you know, ran away from home for the most part for, you know, a month and a half to 2 months, and traveled across the country with someone living in the back of their vehicle. So either way, we were kind of at a point, we were having a rough patch. I was trying to decide if I wanted to see other people. Her decision would have been much easier and quicker. It would have been for her, yes, I am. If you go, peace, kick rocks, see ya. And so I was really more aggravated with myself that I felt like this was something I needed to do. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go all in or break this off completely. And I found that I had already pushed her away enough that I needed to do something to prove to her that I was in it for the long haul. So after us not talking for about a week or so, again, I was 20 years old. I was at a job I really liked, working for one of the biggest truck accessory companies in Chattanooga, which I had specifically went and found a job there because I knew eventually I wanted to start my own truck accessory business, which is something I did do, and learned everything about it from working with this company. But I had put my time in there. I felt like I had gone really as far as I could go. I was around 21 years old, and plus I was just unhappy. Her and I hadn't been talking. It was at that point where ahead. It was at that point where we were going to be broken up and not see each other again, or I was going to commit and make it real. So that's what I did. I remember vividly going to my manager, my boss. Her name was Joanne Golden. I told her, I said, hey, she could tell I was troubled and there was something really heavy on my mind and kind of on my heart. And I said, I'm leaving. I got to go. And the funniest thing, she didn't ask if I was feeling well, if I was sick or anything, or even when I would be back or where I was going. She said, will I ever see you again? She knew immediately that second that when I told her I had to go, that it was something big. And I said, I don't know. So I left, gave her a hug because she was a super cool chick. Her and I were close. She was like kind of a second mom type kind of figure. And so I called Kim and I told her I had left work and I'm going out west to our place in Colorado. And I told her, I said, you're coming with me and we're going to be together or I'm not coming back. And this is it. She said for me to come to her house. I went to her house. I backed my Chevrolet Tahoe up to her living room doors to her mom and dad's house, her childhood home. We literally threw her belongings into the back of my Tahoe from her front porch. She got in it. She called her job. She quit. And we left that day. She called her parents. She told them bye. She didn't tell her sister or anybody. I called my mom and dad on 40 West outside of Nashville on our way to Colorado. I told my mom to sell my four-wheeler and my trailer, which were the only two things I had left back home that I was paying for, and that was it. We left. We were gone for 2 years. We lived out of the back of my Chevrolet Tahoe for 6 months. We stayed at our place in Colorado and lived out there for a little over a year. Traveled all around the West, mountain biking, rock climbing. We worked at a KOA campground. We sold t-shirts in Jackson Hole. It was truly an adventure and something I would recommend for any young adult in their life. That is probably one of the only times, and it is the only time in your life you will ever be able to do something like that. You don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage and big boy bills to pay for, and you have to do something to really feel that sense of freedom and to appreciate it and to fan the flame of that spark that makes you want to get out and do something wild. But the thing is, find somebody special that can share it with you. And so that's what I did, and that's where we went, and that's how long we were gone, and that we've been together ever since. So that being said, she was very familiar with our place in Colorado. She's like me. She can drive straight to it without a map. She knows every road, every little small town we go through. She has stayed out there with me before. She has roughed it. We've done everything together from live out of the back of my Tahoe for a year out in the Colorado wilderness to week-long stays at the Jerome resort in Aspen. So she's been there through all of it. And so as the years went on, and of course we end up coming back, obviously I start my truck accessory business, something I had for over 6 or 7 years. That's the business I was in after working for my family business, manufacturing and building log homes, which is always something I still would do on the side. Every year, that was our thing. We would go out to our place in Colorado. And even after I transitioned into, another career, I closed my truck accessory business. Then it got to a point where I had gotten in with a larger company and was able to afford to go even more. Obviously, as she advanced her career, was able to go a little bit less, but it didn't matter. The months that I would drive out, or the times I would drive out and stay for a couple of weeks to a month, she would fly out, so she wouldn't spend all of her time in the car riding with me, hang out there with me for a couple of weeks in Colorado. and then fly or drive back. So one of the big things we do out west is long range shoot, long range target practice. My dad is the gunman. He's a master machinist. He made his own barrels. He did his own rifling in them. He would make octagon barrels. He made an adjustable sight that I still to this day feel like he could have gotten a patent on, but he just didn't care about, dealing with stuff like that. He actually earned 2 patents, and basically gave them to the Electric Power Board while he was their machinist there, in his early 20s, late 20s to early 30s, that he had under his belt, and basically gave to them that it would stay under the umbrella of the Electric Power Board. And then when he left there, started Southern Log Wholesalers, he was specializing in cutting tools and had developed a cutting tool and a lathe system that revolutionized the pre-cut log home industry, for being able to cut the saddle notch into a log, the dadoed butts, and of course a tongue and groove system is what we use on our log homes. He built the lathe, everything, the notching station, the dado knives, all of it. Developed the tongue and groove cutters, everything that was involved with the milling process of our logs. He created from scratch out of raw steel, fabricated every bit of it, put it together, did the electrical on it. The entire mill was 3-phase, and did everything. He was truly a genius. But his passion was guns. His favorite type of machine work was actually the small, intricate parts of the firing mechanism inside any caliber or rifle. Of course we had our favorites. My dad was not a Winchester guy. He was a Marlin guy, which I still am to this day. Really into old lever action Marlins. Of course he had some Winchesters, and was always a big fan of anything that was an old rolling block, like old Weatherby 4570 rolling blocks, which still, was cutting edge technology for the late 1800s. 1 pin through the entire receiver that operates that entire mechanism, from opening the chamber to loading it, caulking it, and even the safety. And then of course finally the firing mechanism is all held together with 1 pin through the receiver. So there you go, it's a rolling block. Look it up, really cool. Again, cutting edge technology for machinists and the gunsmiths in the 1800s. But so all that aside, whenever we would go out west, obviously that was our thing. We would load up guns and pick out our favorites, and of course, open up the safe and get out, the stuff you just don't take hunting. Obviously, all the big bore antique collectible stuff, we would take out and just spend weeks just shelling brass. That's all we would do. We'd set up and had targets for 600 yards up to 1,200 yards. And, in Georgia, that's hard to do. You can't even really zero your rifle in anything over 100 yards, either because when you're hunting, you're just going to be in the thicket and brush, so dense to where you're not going to get that type of range on any wild game. And 2, out in Colorado, we would have to zero in our long guns for 600 yards. I mean, that was going to be the shortest shot you made, unless you were just shooting prairie dogs, or coyotes, which we did a lot of, and those are stories for another time. I have a good mountain lion hunting story with my brother-in-law Mikey that I'm going to get into on one of these videos. But back to this and my wife. You've kind of got the general idea. Over 20 years of us going out to Colorado, the big thing we do out there is ride 4-wheelers, and of course what turned into side-by-sides, our Polaris RZR, and shooting guns. That's what you do through the week. Of course, on the weekend, it's going to a hotel room, eating out, and day drinking, walking around shops, and that's about it. And of course, that has since evolved for me into dual sport riding, and mountain biking, everything else there is out there. But with my wife, that was our thing. So as we started getting our place built and going out there more. Actually, I'm going to rewind here a second. When we first bought the property, and the very first week we were out there in 1998, the original three, my dad and Paul and Harold, myself, my brother-in-law Mikey, and a couple of workers, the very first week before any ground was ever broke and we were actually picking out a spot to put the cabin, there was a target put up about 100 yards out. It was a railroad cross tie, post hole dug and in the ground with some concrete poured, and we just had like a I guess 3x2 sheet of plywood that was nailed to it, that we could put paper targets on, staple them to it, and that was our target. So of course, from day one, week one in 1998 in Colorado, we had this target out there, and that's how we passed time, just shoot guns. So whether you were a marksman or not, you could still appreciate that's all there was to do. There's no cell service. You venture too far off from that spot, you risk our mountain lion getting you, that is up on a hill behind our property. And so that's the thing, you know, we would just shoot guns. That same target has been out there for 20 years. So obviously anybody that came to our place over that time ended up shooting at this target. You know, my brother-in-law, not that big into guns, but still, at the end of the day, after a long day of work, you know, we'd pour us a drink, get a beer, and start shooting. You know, we'd start with just varmint round, you know, 110 grain, 25-06 caliber lever action long guns, you know, just planking them off, you know, competition target shooting basically, on up to where finally we've backed up, you know, 600 yards, and we've got, you know, our 30-06, you know, and big bore, you know, good Lord, 300 mag Winchesters and you name it, and all this other stuff to do long range stuff, and it's always a competition. Even for guys who weren't into shooting, it's just what we did. So you can name off anyone that had ever been to our property in 20 years. The one thing they all had in common and took part in out there at our place was shooting at this target full of holes. And of course, just nothing but a sheet of plywood that was screwed up to this cross tie, you know, out a couple hundred yards away from our place out there, of course, with a beautiful, most beautiful backdrop you can imagine, all of Cochetope and Powderhorn Wilderness area, all the way out to the Dome Lakes, where you can see for, you know, over 20-30 miles, just wide open with the Rockies behind you. The Continental Divide is literally probably a 30-minute four-wheeler ride to our west, and looking east towards Cochetope, that's where our target was set up and what you would see. Try to get some pictures and see if I can't edit them into this so you guys can get a real visual for what I'm talking about. But the pictures are on my Facebook. For those of you that know, you'll always see and know what I'm talking about when I'm describing this spot. I do have pictures of it there. But if you looked close, you would see this piece of plywood, which of course after 20 years had gotten weathered. It was gray, but had never rotted. It wasn't a sheet of Advantech, it was just some plywood, but out there it's so dry it basically petrifies. And then of course, you know, unless the wind blows it off, it doesn't just rot away to anything. It'll dry up and get brittle, and it'll weather and it'll warp and crown and curl up, but still, it doesn't just rot away and fall off and break away to nothing. There's just not enough moisture in the air for it to. That being said, fast forward 20 years to you know, 2018. We're in Georgia, and you know, my dad is about to pass away. It's you know, he's been diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and it turned out to be one of these two things that were really upsetting me. Is of course, everybody over his life that mattered to my dad or were really close to him were either already had passed away too, or B, they knew my dad so well, they knew that he did not want them to come there and, you know, start pawing all over him and how are you, talking and making small talk and shit. My dad wasn't into that. Just like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday at the end of Tombstone, he's, you know, if you ever had any feelings for me at all and love me as a friend, leave me now. You know, that was my dad. I mean, as true as the day is long, he did not want if anyone there, you know, making a big deal about his health or having a concern for him laid up in a house where he couldn't get out and do stuff. Two things: he wanted you to get out and live your life, and to be, or number two, get out of his way and not have to make him feel like he has to entertain you because you're there trying to show you care and all this bullshit. He knows you cared, and if you really cared, you'd have left so he could be comfortable and not have to feel like he's got to keep you company or entertain and have a conversation with you. So that was Chris. But so either way, I can tell this is going to be hard to tell right here. This is going to suck. So as he got older and the heart failure got a little worse, the other thing that started happening is, aside from everybody coming around, is other people who had not been involved with my dad to any capacity as far as good buddies or friends, but just acquaintances that knew what my dad had around as far as tools and valuable guns. They started coming around and coming out of the woodwork, which turned out to be a really big issue because my dad, on the medication he was on, wasn't really in his right mind when it came to who was there to visit. So if he had guns out, which he did, which is really all he really had the strength to do there kind of towards the end, was to lay out these guns that he loved so much, and he'd go sit in the machine shop and would just like tinkering with them and going over them. You know, if it was nothing more than just changing the ladder side, you know, on an old 25-06, that's what he would do. You know, just had boxes of gun parts and sights that he would change out, you know, from a peep sight to a ladder, or from you know, a blade at the end to something else. But either way, all these guns would be laid out. Somebody like my brother-in-law Mikey would show up, who, you know, really was not anywhere in any type of will or had ever made any sort of list of shit that my dad would want to leave things to, especially priceless collectible antique firearms. Would get to talking to my dad, and in his not in his right mind, would assume that, you know, oh, this is someone that's been here. My dad was in a really emotional place. He would end up giving away some of these guns. And so obviously when that happened, the first couple of times we caught it, and thank God it didn't go any further, except to my nephew. My sister Paige called me and said, hey, Peepaw just gave Lane a very expensive looking gun, very old looking gun. She said, can you come over here and take a look at this? And I said, yeah, let me go over there and check it out. So I did. Yeah, it turned out it was a Model 94, no, this was a Model 89 Marlin 25-06 lever action rifle with a octagon barrel, factory octagon barrel, factory bluing, had never had any work done on it, and was, you know, a $2,500 rifle as far as Rock Island Arms would be concerned. So I told Paige, I said, well, hey, I've got no dog in that hunt. I said, if he wants to give away shit to Lane like that, I said, I have no place to say anything about it. I said, but I can tell you this, if I end up back over here one day and Lane cannot produce that rifle, and I see he is wheeled up with a you know, a $500 set of tires on his $700 piece of shit truck, then it will be his ass. That'll be something that I can have control over or comment on, and that'll be something between him and me that won't be pretty. So of course, because it's like hey, if he wants to pass down this heirloom, he can do it, but as long as they understand the value and importance of it, and they don't go trade this bullshit at some pawn shop for a, you know, $50 Japanese or Chinese pocket knife. So the rifle ended up going back, and we went down and tagged everything that was there with actual paper tags, and with my dad, made sure that he was kind of in his right mind while we were doing it, and asked him several questions in regards to, is this something you want to give away? If you do, who would you like to have it? And so on. I'm telling you that to tell you this. Everybody wanted something from my dad. Everybody but me. Because I knew, and I had spent my entire life basically getting told that he didn't owe me a goddamn thing in this life or this world, and that I can have anything I want as long as I work and earn it. And so, believe you me, when it came time to for my dad to start, giving out things that he had accumulated over his life in tools and guns, I knew if he wanted me to have any of it, it'd have been known and he would have told me, but I sure as hell wasn't asking for it. And come to find out, he was so much not in his right mind that everyone else who had come up, who were these jackasses, not involved in his daily life or had been around for the last 10 years, who were really just looking to take advantage of him, were showing up asking for this stuff. Well, hell, he was giving it to him, and just assumed those of us who were closest to him didn't want it because we weren't asking. So obviously you can believe how much we flipped out, where it was like, well, hell, Chris, why would we ask for it? This is the type of shit that you wouldn't even bring out or expose us to or have in the open over the last 40 years. Now we're supposed to know to ask for it, like you're just going to give it to us. So of course all that got worked out, but even though I wasn't putting myself out there to have him give me or leave anything to me as far as these rifles, and I didn't give a shit about, it'd have been cool. There's only 2 out of probably 60 I really wanted and were important to me. He knew that. The rest, like I said, it wasn't worth it to me to piss him off and have that conversation. But it didn't mean that I still didn't want some part of his life and things that I knew he had worked and built, and or things that we had done and shared together. So it was always just kind of in the back of my mind, wow, what is there? What is there that is something that connects us from the times where we've traveled together? Was it his old pickup truck? No, I didn't want a job, something that didn't work. Was it one of these collectible guns? No, because that's the thing, even though they were collectible and nice old guns, I didn't have a memory of he and I together with any of those in particular. So even though those were cool, that wasn't what I was looking for. So either way, we go to Colorado, or actually I end up going by myself, which is something I started doing. I had believed that that Paul, his best friend, was going to drive him out. They were going to come out together, and oxygen tanks, medication and all, not even really knowing if the altitude would be a problem, which of course it probably would have. He had planned to go out to our place one last time. No one said or referred to it like that. We just knew it would be. And Paul was the one who was going to drive, because my dad just wasn't in the kind of shape he could drive. But I wanted to be there out at our place for that trip when he arrived. So I drove, and unfortunately I was at the point in my career and had a position inside a company I was working for that I could leave and be gone for a couple of months, and had plenty of money to do it, and I could go like a rock star. So brand new truck, brand new trailers, brand new razors, brand new motorcycles. I'd load all that shit up and I would take off, and finally getting to go and enjoy myself on this type of trip, a way I had never gotten to before. And all I want is for my dad to be out there, because even years past, it isn't like we really got to hang out together, because we were working the whole time. And even with Paul with him, Paul, he's no spring chicken either. He's older than my dad, and I knew with me already being out there, when they arrived, I'd be probably helping them a lot more, or if nothing else, my dad would be depending on me to help him do things, and Paul too, for that matter, because between the two of them, if they got a flat tire and had to change it, both of their hearts would have exploded. So they were going to need me out there, and I was happy to do it and already be out. They didn't come. They didn't show up. A couple of things happened. My dad wasn't feeling well. I'd been out there for 5 weeks in Colorado waiting on my dad and Paul to come. They never came. So after being out there by myself, which is a long time to be in the Saguache Valley of Colorado by yourself at the Lucky 3 Ranch with no one there, had just about shot every bit of ammunition I had went through every rifle and just killing time and rode every trail you could on our Razor that I had known for years past. Traveled every small town, drank at every microbrewery. Got to the point where it was just, okay, well, they're not coming out, I'm going to go home. And on that day, as I was, my newest rifle I had got was a Marlin 3220. I was really having a good time shooting it. I had just got my sight adjusted on it, and I was shooting through that target, and I was packing it up, figured I'd go ahead and start loading my stuff up and getting ready to leave and close our place down for the winter. I realized it just hit me. It hit me all of a sudden, what I wanted to take, what I could get that was of no value and provided and gave me everything I wanted and was looking for, and something to remember my dad by, which was his target. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that's it. It's this, I'm taking this target. Just this old, worn out, 3 foot wide by about 2 foot tall sheet of plywood with thousands of holes in it, and withered as hell, and burnt up to a crisp from the sun. Took it down, took my paper targets off of it, and studied every hole in it. I knew which holes were the 45-70 shot out from 1,000 yards by my dad. I knew which holes were my 30-06 model 77 skeleton stock bolt action Ruger. The old all-weather skeleton stock rifles, they're pretty rare now. I remember when I bought it, my dad had a 25-06 bolt action Marlin skeleton stock rifle, and we shot those together. I could pick out those holes. Hell, when we would shoot pistols, I could pick out the 45 long Colt. My dad and I took turns shooting offhand from the hip, hitting the corners of it and shit. I could study and remember just about every hole in it. I could see the 22 bullet holes from where, you know, Kim would be out and shooting, you know, just with the 22. And of course, you know, even Mikey, Harold, Paul, Bobby, Stacy, any guy that had ever been out there. It wasn't just even really something that was a link to my dad and my times out there together, as much as it was everybody, a link to everybody that had ever been out there and shot at this target. The one thing and the only thing on that property that everybody could have in common, that everybody used, and at one point everybody had participated in together, and of course my dad, the two of us together too, over the last 20 years, was this target. So I took it down. I had a Chevrolet, actually a GMC Denali Duramax truck, beautiful truck, crew cab with a camper shell over the bed. I had my mattress in it where I would sleep in the bed of it as I traveled, and I put this plywood under the mattress of in the bed of my truck so it would stay nice and flat, like nothing would, as if anything could happen to it, you know. And that was it. So I drove home, and as I drove all the way back to Georgia with it, I ended up getting home, and so this is probably where I'm going to need to put on my glasses here, because this is where this gets kind of it's where this story gets takes a turn for the emotional. So it's just true though. I've tried to tell this 100 times and I've never been able to tell it. So I drive home, I get back to Georgia, and Kim knew that there was just told her on the way home, or I think in a text message, you know. Now keep in mind, this is 2018, 2019, pretty recent. I said, I'm bringing something from the place. And of course my dad made every stick of furniture in it, the end tables, our coffee table upstairs in the living room. He made all that shit.
Accident reported ahead on I-10W in a quarter mile. You're still on the fastest route.
Sorry, y'all can hear my map going off. I told her I brought something from the place. Hell, she didn't know if it was the TV, an end table, the coffee table. She didn't know. It isn't like we had pictures hanging on the wall, But what could it be? And that's really all I kind of told her. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I just knew what it meant to me. And it wasn't something I had to ask my dad for. It wasn't something that other people were going to fight over. You had to drive 2,000 miles to get it. And it was exactly what I wanted. It was something only I even knew what it meant. And it was just special to me. And I'm really into cool shit like that. Something that it has no value, that is priceless. And that's exactly what it was. So I got home and I dropped my tailgate and I pulled this plywood out. And so Kim knew exactly what it was. And so she was kind of floored. She was like, wow. She knew that I got what I wanted, and I thought of the one thing that was just super cool that nobody else would want or give a shit about, and that I probably wouldn't even tell anyone that I had, and that no one would really even notice. No one would notice but my dad, and that was it. Hell, Paul wouldn't have even noticed. So, but I got it. It was mine. Brought it home. So it sat behind my bed for probably well, I'll tell you this, I'm forgetting the most important part of the story. As I pulled it out from the mattress in the bed of my truck, I couldn't say anything. All I could get out was that it's such a prize. That's all I said. I didn't know how to describe it. Just such a prize, that's what it was. And that's all I said. That's all I could say about it. Just such a prize, So I kept it behind my bed for a couple of years and didn't know what to do to it or with it. But just wanted to keep it, so fuck me. So anyway, about 2 Christmases ago, Kim took this Target and had it framed. She had it framed, like $600 framed. Had a frame built for it. I didn't even realize this was a fucking thing, that there were like 3 different types of glass you could get for pictures. I remember, it's funny to hear her tell the story about walking in the framing store with this piece of plywood with 1,000 bullet holes in it. They all just looked at her like she was crazy, except this one dude. She was like, I want you to help me with this. And he got it. He must have been a gun guy or something that he just, I guess, knew this is something special, because Kim, she knows I'm a real open checkbook kind of guy. When there's something I want, fucking, I write the 1, you add zeros till you're happy, because I'm leaving with it. And when I want something, Kim knows that's how I roll. And if she's doing something for me, that's how she rolls. So, because I do that for her. So this guy and her understood each other well. She said, this needs to be the most perfect thing you've ever framed, with the clearest glass, the best job, well, you name it, the colors. She said, I don't care what it costs. She said, I don't care how long it takes. It doesn't have to be for Christmas. It has to be right. Because right shit doesn't matter what it costs or how long it takes. What matters is that it's right. And believe me, on Christmas morning when I opened it, it was right. So I opened it up, and I could kind of tell by the size of it that it was definitely a picture or something framed. I mean, obviously you can tell by the thickness and the size of it. So I open it up, and I see our Target from our place out west. All the bullet holes. Each one's a story. Each one is a different gun. Each one is a different experience and time with us out there. Each one is a different party, a different night, a different year, a different group, and they're all there. They're all there together just for me. And there's a plaque at the bottom in gold. It says, such a prize. So super cool. Yeah, hard to tell that fucking story. I'm into cool shit like that, and so there you go. You guys are getting to see a side of me that no one ever fucking sees. That's why I've never put anything about this on Facebook, because the picture does not do it justice. You have to know the story, and if you don't know the story, you can't see this. So I have put pictures of it up on Facebook since, but basically no description whatsoever. It hangs over my dining room table with 32-foot vaulted cathedral ceilings over it. There is a skylight above it. There is a chandelier in front of it. It is the only thing more noticeable than this in my house is the 9-foot wide by 9-foot tall windows in the front of my living room. So, which are not a picture at all except for the outside view in front of my house. But so there you go. That is the story of the Target, and yeah, my wife is a badass. So that being said, that is a badass wife story. And I told her then, nothing will ever top that. You can't even come close to it. Nothing has sense, and it's okay. I don't want anything to. Imagine something that's over 20 years in the making, with $0 value, that is that priceless, that many people have participated in creating, and you have to remind you of a time with somebody, you know, your dad. That was one of the only things, and one of the first things we ever did really together, you know, alongside each other, not as father and son, but as, you know, two grown men. You know, we're shooting guns out there together at our place in Colorado. So a couple more cool stories about that kind of stem off of it. I'm not going to get into those right now, but there you go. I hope you guys go to my Facebook and find the pictures of this thing. It's pretty cool to see. Now you have the story of it, and yeah, try to think of more for you guys later.